Jania, to get us started, give me two truths and a lie, please.
Sure. Okay. Truth or lie. When I was 22, part of my graduation present, I went skydiving
Hmm?
with a couple of friends, and that was pretty crazy. Number two, I had lunch with President Reagan and Nancy Reagan at the White House. And number three, I danced on a piano in Switzerland with the Prince of Saudi, with a Prince of Saudi Arabia singing New York, New York.
These are amazing. For our listeners, Jania let me know that she was excited about two truths and a lie, and now I understand why. So, all right, 22 years old, you went skydiving, you've had lunch with Nancy and Ronald Reagan at the White House, and you danced on a piano with like the King of Saudi Arabia singing New York, New York in Switzerland or something.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, these are excellent. How risk adverse is Janya? And that would mean skydiving was a stretch, so I don't doubt that that's true. The Reagans, Janya, I don't think that you're old enough to have had lunch with the Reagans at the White House, and I don't know if you even like pianos. So I'm going to say the second one is not true.
You are incorrect.
Ah, you got me.
Yes, I knew you wouldn't get it because nobody does.
All right, so tell me which one is in fact the lie.
It's the first one. I never went
Ah,
skydiving. I'd never go skydiving. That scares the bejesus out of me.
yeah. All right, so how'd you get to have lunch with the Reagans?
I did Girls State and then Girls Nation. Back because I wanted to go to West Point when I was a little girl and or high school, and so that was one of the ways. If you made Girls State, and then I went further and made Girls Nation, and that's how I had lunch with the Reagans.
Amazing. And tell me about dancing on pianos.
I was at a awards President's Club awards trip in Switzerland, and the Prince of Saudi Arabia was there. And the first night, him and his entourage and myself and my fiance got became friends with him. And from that entire week, we would close down every bar with him. And I there was a piano player and he loved Americans and I sang New York, New York to him. And I was like 24 years old. Like I had no idea what I was doing, but it was fun.
I think that that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you wanted to go to West Point. That's not necessarily the most common thing that I hear.
No, and I ended up not going. My dad was a career Army officer, and he pretty much told me no. But later on in life, my oldest daughter did. So I got to live through her going to West Point. And I married a Naval Academy grad. So I've got the military going through my blood for sure.
No doubt. Congratulations to your daughter. That is, I'm always really impressed by people that go to the academies.
Yeah, it's pretty selfless of them and their commitment to our country for sure.
Okay. So do people try to talk you into skydiving today or no?
Yeah, someone recently actually just brought it up to me, and I was like, it's just one of those things I have no desire to do. I'm like okay with it. I'm okay admitting I don't want to go skydiving.
For sure. Yeah, I'm not interested either. I don't really like heights, and it seems like, I mean, that's one of the biggest ways to tempt fate, maybe ever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Awesome. Well, Janya, what is top of mind for you right now?
I mean, I think that I'm super excited about the industry that I work in. Help what's a big deal for me right now is how are we going to bring in the next generation, especially a big of mine is bringing in more female financial advisors. It's naturally just not a place women tend to think of for a career. And so, I'm out there. I spent 30 years in the industry, and now it's fun kind of being more proactive in how we can deliver in this industry.
So non-traditional career paths. That's something that that you're certainly not you certainly don't shy away from it. You were trying to go into the army, and now you're trying to get women into a field that is not traditionally a female field.
That's right. Yep. So I have pulled in so many different women that were pre-med majors. My youngest daughter is has her first job now at Nuveen, but she was a poli-sci major. I go to head coaches at colleges of women's sports, and I say, "Hey, can I talk to some of your seniors?" And I think they just need to understand that this is an amazing industry, and it's not what it might appear just on online. There's so much more to it about helping people, and I think people think of financial services as more like the stocks and bonds and graphs and charts, but it's really so much more. It's really an emotional business, and a personal business. And I think women would do really well in this if they gave it a try.
When you are talking with young people, young women about the career, what is the feedback that you're getting? What is good and bad?
I mean, I think a lot of them, their first reaction, I think of the one of my best hires. She was a pre-med major. And she thankfully, in the middle of the summer, decided not to go to med school. And so I got her name from a head women's lacrosse coach. And I told her about what we did. And she's like, it just seems so boring to me. Like, you're not really making an impact. Like, whereas pre-med, you're like saving lives. I think this stigma is that financial services, it's just a bunch of people trying to make money off of other people. And, we've got to shift the way people view us from that perspective, because I can tell you, I spend more time just helping making people feel better and more clear and less stressed, not necessarily talking about market returns or making money, or where I'm going to go to make the most money off of them. You know, that hopefully that's more old school. That's not how this industry is moving forward.
So when you're having a conversation with this young lady and she said, "Oh, it just doesn't seem very interesting to me. You're not making an impact." How do you position it? Do you say like what do you say that a financial advisor or however you refer to yourself, the people you're trying to bring in, that what is the role?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I am in a very niche business. I've lived for 30 years in the retirement plan space. So yes, I've got all the licenses. I am a financial advisor, but a big part of what we do, so plan advisors, what we do is really we're helping employers two ways, helping protect them as fiduciaries with a governance process. But what's really exciting, which might resonate with some people, is we're all about how do we get the disengaged engaged. So you got a client, an employer that's got 1,000 employees, and 600 of them aren't even thinking about retirement. But you know what? They're stressed out about debt. They're stressed out about student loans. They don't know how they're going to buy their first house. In this current environment, they're stressed out about, the costs that's going up of just living. So, yes, we talk about investments with the committees, the fiduciary committee, but then we're doing really creative things at the employers. We're doing podcasts. We're doing really cool technology. So, George, to answer that question, like if I could take somebody who never thought about financial services, but has a creative mind or cares about working America, and I can pull them in, we can teach them investments. Like that, I hate to say it, that's not the hard part, especially in the 401k business, because we're not doing exotic investments, right? Like it's very, it's more mutual funds, maybe CITs. So that part's not hard. It's trying to get creative and get the workforce to pay attention. So that's how I kind of tap into them.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. And you mentioned that you're talking to people with an athletic background, and so I think that certainly translates out. It's been my experience, certainly in the business, and that's what drew me to be a plan advisor as well, is it just being intellectually interested in why it is that we struggle so mightily to save money, yet we're so stressed out about it. And so it pulls on my creativity and, my problem solving, my analytical. It just really brings everything together. And yeah, being a physician, there's not a better way to have a direct impact on somebody, but helping people get financial peace of mind is also an extremely impactful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you myself and my team, we've gotten many notes from people, emails like, you've literally changed my life, you've saved my marriage, you help me not feel as stressed because, and sometimes, George, we're meeting with employees and they just want someone to say, okay, thumbs up, you're doing all right.
Hmm.
And that happens, they're 26 years old. They have no idea they were automatically enrolled in the plan. They think maybe they should be doing something more, but they don't know. So they come and have a call or a meeting and we just give them the thumbs up. I used to say when years ago, I had a big retail client in New York and like I was like, I want to be that person that 30 years from now, that employee that worked at this retailer said, you know what? I remember meeting with this lady, and she told me, listen, I know you want to go out and, buy that new pair of shoes or whatever, and you can have shoes. I'm not telling people to not have fun, but like just start early and let it go. Don't touch it. Don't change your deferral amount. And I want to be that girl that he thinks of when he's like, wow. And he opens up his statement and he's like, I can actually retire. And that's the impact we can have. A big fan of the younger generation because we can help them at an early age, get them on the right path. And a lot of them will pretty much do whatever you tell them to do. They're like, all right, tell me how much I should be saving, where I should be saving, and they'll listen. Um, and they don't have as many demands, trying to like get into their pockets. So it's easier to start them when they're younger.
Isn't that the truth? And I love
Mhm.
the reality that a lot of the time people are just wanting kind of that thumbs up or that stamp of approval that, yeah, what you're doing will probably get you, or at least position you for the result that you want. There's so much noise out there, and I've always felt that our industry creates so much unnecessary complexity, and I don't know exactly why that is, but it's a lot easier than I think people think.
Yeah, I agree.
So, why is that, do you think? Why is our business so complicated, if that's a worthwhile conversation? I I don't know, but I think that probably has to also feed into that stigma of just the industry being kind of stuffy and not necessarily for young people and maybe not necessarily for women.
Yeah. I think I mean, but I'm happy to see that like there is some small changes happening, I hate to give COVID any positive, remarks, but it did create, a more authentic kind of world that we're in. And we don't necessarily have to wear like, these uptight suits and things. We can just be human. And so I think as we take that veil off and become more authentic, I think our industry won't seem as scary. I mean, by far, there are some really good, complicated investment strategies that, more on the wealth management side, here at Prime Capital, I think we have one of the best CIOs, and I mean, he's doing some really cool things, but that's why you need to hire a financial advisor. more on the wealth side, on the retirement side as well. But that's why you need to find somebody that you trust and you like, and let them be the ones to like deal with all the complicated things, right? But you're right, it's not that complicated. And I don't know if I'm saying that just because I've been in the business 30 years. So for me, it's like, yeah, it's easy. But I think that it's if people just take that first step, they'll see that it's not that bad.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's so funny. We could have a conversation right now using industry jargon and it would go over the top of everybody's head, or we could just make a subtle adjustment and toss out or get rid of, 316, blah, 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 and just use regular language, and then everybody would understand it. So that you've been doing it for 30 years and that you view it as not as complicated. I think that that's just a sign that you're really good at what you do and you're good at articulating the work that you do and the impact that we have.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Yesterday, when I was up in Connecticut, I was doing a training for 30 or so plan sponsors. So employers, back to your point about like we call them things, and they're employers, they're heads of HR, CFOs, not necessarily just plan sponsors. But I did fiduciary training, and there are four tenets to fiduciary duty. Like it's so simple and it seems so scary and complex, right? So to your point, um, we just need to simplify things for our clients, for new advisors. I mean, again, you asked me what was top of mind early. Of course, it's bringing women into the retirement plan industry and financial industry altogether, but also that next generation, right? Like, I've got some really great young advisors at Prime Capital that I just am loving helping them understand, the business and compliance and, 401k, fiduciary duty, all of that. Um, and that's where we need to, because there's some of us that have been around a long time. We need to get that next wave in, because someday we'll all retire. Not anytime soon, but sooner than probably you. At least me.
Yeah, no, I think that that's right. And are you hopeful for the future? You feel good about everything?
Um, Gosh, that's a tough question. I do feel good, but I'm an optimist. I am by far. I always say like my bad days are most people's, good days. So I think you find lemonade, you make lemonade out of lemons, right? It's in all different ways, whether it's our retirement plan industry, the financial industry overall, or just the world we're living in today. There's a lot going on, a lot of noise. You just got to find those areas to focus on that are good and keep going. We have to have faith.
We have to have faith, and if you didn't feel good about where the world was going, you'd probably go skydiving all the time, Jania.
Yeah. I'd go skydiving if I wanted to end it
Yeah,
soon.
right. I love it. All right, Jania. Well, we're ready for that difference making tip. What do you have for us?
I would say this is a tip. I think one of the greatest books out there. If you're trying to, you know, exceed in life or succeed in your business, but primarily in financial services, retirement plan advisory. But the famous How to Win Friends and Influence People with Dale Carnegie. I just naturally did this, but I found it fascinating when I read that book years ago. And the tip I would give people, and I've given many of the folks I've mentored through my career, is you know when you see something good in somebody, tell them. A lot of times, and sometimes it could be just as simple as, somebody walks in and you like the sweater they're wearing, right? And in your head you go, oh, that's a cool sweater. I like that. But just say it to them. So I will tell you, And that's my point in like it's a genuine compliment, but it creates this human connection. And it's amazing how when you recognize something in somebody else, and I just tend to share it all the time. I probably say things out loud I probably should keep in my head sometimes, but I don't. And I think that's why I've had the ability to connect with people because I'll tell them, even a perfect stranger, like, oh, I love your sweater. I like your hair today. I mean, you shouldn't do it fake. You should do it only when you feel it. But I've helped some other people, especially some guys on my team over the years that maybe didn't feel comfortable doing that. And it was funny the first day I walked into work one day, and one of the young advisors that I had given that tip to, he's like, out of the blue, he's like, hey, Jania, is that a new suit? I really like that. And I was like, oh, thank you. And then it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, he did it, you know? And he is one of the most successful advisors. And I think it's because that human connection. So that's my tip, George, is just be human and don't be afraid to be human. It will take you really far.
Well, I think that is great stuff. That definitely gets it. Come on. I think that's some of the best advice that you can give. And certainly somebody that's in your position and has been a leader in the industry for so long, um, to and it's hard advice to be yourself because we're so accustomed to sort of acting the way that we perceive that we're supposed to act, and then we're in this buttoned up industry, and I'm a woman in a male dominated business, so I need to act this way and da 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 da, and it's all terrible. It's all terrible advice. You just got to
Yeah.
be yourself. So.
Yeah. Well, on that real quick, I have to tell you that I've had several clients tell me later and after working with me, they're like, and I get close with them, they're like, yeah, when I first met you, like you were just so nice and bubbly, but I was like, oh, she probably doesn't, know a lot because she's just too authentic and real and bubbly and nice and not like you said, buttoned up. They're like, oh my gosh. And then like 30 minutes into the conversation, I'm like, you're real and bubbly and you know what you're doing? Like, so to your point, like we can still be real. And if you're a female or a woman, be a woman. Like, don't try to be a man and, be who you are. And I think that it will, your client, your prospect will see that and they'll either like you or not. You'd rather them like the real you now because they're going to find out later anyway, right? So, anyway, that's my tip.
Amen. I think that that's awesome advice. Well, Jania, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you? How can they engage? And for people who are interested in the career, tell me a little bit more about that too.
Sure. Yeah, so you could always email me at jstout, STOUT, at primefinancial.com. Or you can go to www.primefinancial.com. We've got 70 offices over the country, doing some really amazing things, both in the retirement plan, financial wellness, and the wealth side of the business. And I am recruiting. So if anybody wants to come join and come along for the ride, come on and join me because we're going to have some fun.
Excellent. Well, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Jania your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. If you are curious about the business, reach out to Jania. Go to primefinancial.com. Shoot her an email, Jania. It's Jania, but that's not your email address. It's jstout at primefinancial.com and see if there's an opportunity. Thanks again, Jania.
Thank you, George. Thanks for having me.
Finally, friendly reminder, there's never going to be anybody as interested in your financial success as you are. So act accordingly.